What is going on, community? It is TJ, aka Flash by Night, and I am going to try something new. This will be the first edition of what I would like to call, or I'm going to call, the wrap up. Basically, today I am going to give you my non spoilery thoughts and opinions on the Eternals. I went and saw the Eternals this weekend, and I have thoughts. I think most of us know, most of us who haven't been living under a rock know that the Eternals got mixed reviews, some bad, some good, depending on who you talk to, and I believe it actually depends on taste. I think it's a movie that each individual has to kind of decide what they feel about it, and it ranges from 0 to 10. So I'm going to go over what I thought about the movie, kind of break it down the way I do in my head. Just for warning, I am not a movie critic whatsoever, and I am not an expert on these characters whatsoever. I'm just a guy who went and plopped down a few dollars to go and sit down and be entertained and learn something new about some characters I have no idea about. So let me tell you how it went. Okay, so Eternals was a complicated subject to broach because it's not your normal movie. It's an MCU movie, and MCU movies hit you on a few different levels, right? So the first level I want to talk about is the actual movie aspect because we all saw that the movie got some low ratings from movie critics. I believe audiences on Rotten Tomatoes, we'll use them for an example. They're pretty popular. The audience score was much better, last I saw, than the critic score. So we're gonna talk about the movie aspect first. The movie does have some drawbacks as a movie. To me, the first act was pretty stuffed. It had a lot of things going on. There were more than enough time jumps throughout the movie, but especially in the first act, there were more than enough because these are 7,000-year-old characters. I hope they're not 17-year-old characters. These are 7,000-year-old characters, and the movie is trying to cover their genesis up until now. And they're also trying to give you information about relationships, about turns in humanity, what makes these guys and girls tick. That's what the movie is doing, and so they're having to do a lot. They're having to carry a lot of weight, and you get a lot of that in the first act. By the time it settles down into the second act, and going forward, there's not as much of a stuffed feeling. I think I've seen before where people have the opinion that it would have probably made a better Disney Plus series than a movie, and I do think that there's information that was probably left out. Characters who may have been underdeveloped because of the time aspect, and when I say characters underdeveloped because of the time aspect, I believe we have to get to learn and get to know about 10 plus characters, brand new characters in this movie. Along with that, we have to learn about concepts about the universe. We have to unlearn some things we think we know about the MCU as we've seen it, and I think that's a lot to take in a two and a half, close to 2.5 hour movie. So I do get where movie critics come from. If you were to compare it to, let's say dinner, let's say restaurants. If I am I don't know, a food critic, let's say a food critic, or if I'm a famous chef or a chef at all that's trying to judge my peers. Like, I know all of the little nuances to look for, and I know where they took shortcuts, or I know where they didn't put as much of an ingredient into this dish as they should, or they put a little too much. Whereas the regular everyday diner comes in, and this person just wants, a good meal, wants to bring loved ones, family out, have a good meal, have a good time. And that's most of us at these movies. So I don't think that most of us will watch the movies like movie critics do. So I don't think we come away with the same kind of feeling. But if you do fairly watch the movie, I can see where some of the critique comes in on a movie standpoint. So now I want to get to the MCU of it all. We've talked about the movie, and we've talked about how the MCU movies themselves are not just movies, but they are movies, they are events, and they are educational tools. And I know some people would disagree with the educational tool part, because the MCU movies have come to, depart a little bit, at least, from some of the characters and some of the events that in the comic books. But we'll stick with educational tools just for my satisfaction. So we know that it's not a perfect movie, right? So, but what we find out is that it is a grand event. It's almost a grand celebration of the history of the world and how everything came to be shaped in the eyes of these characters. We also learned that although we've watched the MCU and we've seen all of these movies, and we've seen what they call the blip, we've seen Infinity Stones, we've seen other worlds, we've seen everything, we've seen magic. But we're going to find out in this movie that all of the stuff we have seen don't play on the biggest scale that we could play on. And we're finding out about celestials, about world building and universe building, and all that stuff is great in this movie, at least in my opinion. And so on the movie scale, pure movie scale, it's not as great as it could be, but I do think on the event scale, it did its job. It taught us who and what these people are, and it made them way more important, I think, than even I would have thought coming into the movie. Now, on the educational tool part, as I said earlier, we came into this movie needing to learn about over 10 characters and about celestials and the universe and the beginning, and how these characters affected mankind and how mankind affected these characters. And I think that the movie did a good job of educating us on these characters, basically almost one by one, as you get deeper into the movie. In fact, it did so much that I am going to probably go ahead and try to check out the current run on Comixology. I'm pretty sure, I'm almost 100% sure, because this is the MCU, that the characters I saw on the screen aren't exactly the characters that I'll end up reading about, but the characters I saw on the screen did captivate me. There are a few of them that I'd like to know more about, And I would like to see some of those characters going forward into the future. I can't tell you yet where I think this future is going, but I would like to see some, and I hope they stick around. Also, to address one of the other MCU expectations, and I really didn't think I'd get this deep into the video before I said this, but this movie has action, but it is not action packed. Even the third act, where you usually get all of your action, it has action. It's full of great looking scenes, stuff I really enjoyed. But the third act doesn't have the ending. It doesn't have the conclusion that you would expect from an MCU movie. Whether that's good, whether that's bad, is probably on the viewer. I liked it. I didn't mind it. I think visually, I had an argument with one choice at the end, but I do think storytelling wise, I did like the end of the movie. As I said, there's not as much action as you would come to expect in an MCU movie, but at the same time, I don't think that's what the movie was aiming for. And if you go into the movie knowing that, and going into the movie to see what the movie may give you, to see what may be in store, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Now, let's get to what I really did like about the movie. First things first, I loved the characters in this movie. I enjoyed all the Eternals. I enjoyed how unique they were, but three of them, for me, really stood out. And the first one is one character that I really meshed with. I really kind of saw myself in this character a little bit, and that was the character of Gilgamesh. You know, he's a little chunky. He's kind of powerful, but he's joyful and protective, and he kind of embodies that whole family thing. And like I said, he's a real protector, and I love that about him. Just because I see some of that stuff in myself on the screen. So that was one of my favorite characters. Another one of my favorite characters, and it's not just because I'm a Flash fan and I'm a Speedster fan, but it's I think her name is Makkari, the Speedster of the bunch, and that's because I liked the communication, because she's deaf, but she uses sign language, and the other characters who communicate with her also use sign language. So I kind of liked it. That, well, they had 7,000 years to learn, but I like that they really got down and made that effort to communicate. But also she really wanted the smoke. There are certain portions in the movie that just let you know that Makkari is great. She's a nice person, passionate person, loving person, but don't push us because we're close to the edge. And that's what I really got out of Makkari. I loved her for that. And the last person that I really liked was Phastos. I liked him because he kind of embodied the humanity of the Eternals as we went on through the movie. I also kind of saw a little bit of myself in him, where sometimes you look out on people and things aren't going right, and they kind of disappoint you, and it's like, but you cannot lose faith, you cannot lose hope. You got to find it somewhere, and that's what this character does, and that's what I get from him. So those are my top 3 Eternals characters from this movie. Now there's also I think it's Kingo, I think the Indian character, and he has all the laughs. There are plenty of laughs in this movie. He has about 75% of them. It's great, and also maybe 5 to 10% of the laughs come from this human character. Great character, really funny, really well placed. Like I said, that's one thing that I like in these types of movies. My opinion has always been in these superhero action movies, I don't need perfect movies. I need you to show me something. I need you to entertain me. I need you to make me laugh. I need you to surprise me a couple of times and give me some amount of action, and we can work with it. We can go on from there. And I think I got all of that in this movie. And speaking of twist, which I certainly was, there are more than 0 twists in this movie. And I believe once the twist hits, that's when it really picks up, when you really get deep down in the movie and learn what you're there for. I think that's when you really, as a comic movie fan, that's when you really, really kind of settle down into it, and as I said, you know what you're there for, and you once again are more informed. With the twist comes more information about the universe, more information about the earth. There's a whole family dynamic with the Eternals, and you guys know how families work. Everything's not always great. Everything's not always perfect in families, and we also get that here. So there are a lot of things going on in the Eternals movie that are good to see. That are things that make me want to pay money to see this movie. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but I think it was worth seeing. In my personal opinion, I'd probably give it a 7 to 7.5, maybe even an 8. I have to maybe watch it again to see if I'm going to move it up to an 8. I wouldn't give it much more than that because of the movie aspects of it. But as for coming in, as for being entertained, as for learning something about some new characters, as for being inspired to read a new comic book, I think this movie hits the mark, and I think that you should check it out also. You didn't think I was going anywhere without addressing the 2 additional scenes, did you? You know we had to do that. There was a mid-credit scene, there was a post-credit scene, so as always, stay glued to your chair after the movie. I think most of us know that, but there may be 1 or 2 newcomers here. But in the 2 scenes, I won't give away the order, but we know one surprise character that shows up in one of these post-credit scenes. It kind of got spoiled early on by a magazine who should know better, but that's neither here nor there. But there is a second surprise character who I'm actually more interested about, because this character showing up tells me that we may actually be seeing the Eternals, or at least some of them, a lot sooner than we thought when the movie went off. I will leave it right there and not give anything else away about that scene. The second scene, don't want to give anything away about that either, but I will say that if you search the internet, you can find a mysterious voice. I'll leave it at that, and I will leave it up to you. So, go ahead, if you stuck around, hit that like button. I appreciate it. And if you want to keep up with me and see me check out and talk about more movies, TV shows, whatever, go ahead, hit the subscribe button. Leave comments in the comment section. And as we always do at this time, love yourself, love others, and I We'll be back in the flash.